Yeah, baby, it's episode 11 of The Whiners on December 5th, 2024. We're in Washington, D.C. in hotels dealing with internet problems. So sorry for the delayed start. And our guests, Scott Ritter, Morgan Blythe, and Jose Vega, were in Congress today.
Oh, Scott, we're here at the Capitol today. What are we doing?
Trying to stop a nuclear war.
All right, perfect. And how exactly are we doing that here in the Capitol, in what people call the swamp? All these snakes, and it's a smelly place.
It's also the seat of government where American democracy is played out in real time. This is, if you want policies that are effective, you need Congress to take action. Right now, we're on a fast track towards a nuclear war with Russia.
Right.
And one of the things that we're trying to get Congress to do is take action to reverse the decision by the Biden administration to greenlight the use of American-made ATACMS missiles on targets inside Russia.
That is some cinematography. I'm going to take a wild guess and say it was not Martin Scorsese directing that. But it's what you did. What?
The movie 1917 was noted for its long cinematics and, photographers walking back. Watching Morgan film this was a fine act, because she literally walking backwards navigated a congressional hall in transition. People are moving, so there's chairs, there's stuff.
Exactly.
She deserves a Medal of Honor for that.
Well, actually, Morgan is very talented. We've been showcasing her work, but let's right now really give her propers, as the kids say. The illustration of Joe Biden and the ice cream cone was done by Nemo, but the rest of it is the work of Morgan. So thank you for that, Morgan. This is the big event, Saturday, 4 p.m. at the National Press Club. Dennis Kucinich added to that already very impressive roster. And Morgan also created this, which is for the book event, Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika at Busboys and Poets on Sunday. So good work, Morgan. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Good A-list. Good A-list.
So what, Morgan, you were doing cinematography. Jose, did you yell at members of Congress like you in your interventionist style?
Did you have to choke?
Yeah. Did you manage to behave yourself today in this special situation?
It's funny. I wasn't sure what to do. Scott had one way of doing it. I had another. We did see one member of Congress twice, Eric Swalwell. This guy is a total. Yeah, right.
Yuck.
And I saw him the first time, and I thought, should I? Maybe I shouldn't. And then I saw him the second time, and I asked Scott, like, hey, if this happens again, what should we do? And Scott maybe wants to elaborate a little bit on this, but we have different.
This is what you should have said to him.
Why don't you go outside and play hide and go fuck yourself?
I mean, the thing is, if it's Scott the Marine, he might say, go for the feet, and, but this was Scott.
I got the feeling Scott didn't even like Jose saying it was a smelly place. You were in a very polite, business-like mode there.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, no, I look, Medea, let me start off by saying, first of all, I had to put a shock collar on Jose, and I had the button. Every time I walked by Nancy Pelosi's office, he started foaming at the mouth, and I had to get him back in line. You saw Eric Swalwell, and he was just immediately going for the throat. It's like, no, back, heel. I have nothing but respect for Jose, and we're joking right now, but what he does, his interventionist style, is unique. It really is unique, and everybody knows him for this. And I applaud him for his courage in doing it. I couldn't do it. But yes, I was in Scott the diplomat mode, which means that I was focused on formal meetings and things of that nature. But I also just want to say something. Today I was showed up by a 73-year-old lady who she attacked Congress. She walked. This is Medea Benjamin. This lady is a force of nature. First of all, today she just showed her intellect, her amazing intellect. her focus, her humanity, but she more, from my perspective, she showed me endurance like you wouldn't believe. He is sprinting through the halls of Congress. Let me the next. And Joe Laurie and I are trying to play catch up here. So while Jose was talking to me, do you want to know what was really going through my mind? Damn, my knees hurt. My feet hurt. My hips hurt. Everything hurts. I'm in pain. I'm in pain. I'm in pain. Because Medea was just force marching her way through this thing. I was also thinking, please, Morgan, don't trip over that. Please, Morgan, don't trip over this. Please, Morgan, don't trip over that. So it may have come off that I was somewhat reticent or something. No, Jose and I talked about it, and I said, you do what you need to do. As for me, I'm going to sit back here and focus on these meetings, because if you do intervention wrong, it's not going to turn out right. Jose does it right. If I get involved in it and someone says something to me, I will hit them. And then
people lose teeth.
And so
Jose just keeps giving his spiel no matter what.
Jose just focused on yelling at them and saying things. They would say somebody would come up and touch me, and I'd the next thing you know, we'd have somebody on the ground with a broken arm and stomped in face, and I'd be in handcuffs being led away, and mission fail. So my mode, it's like when I walk into a bar and I see people looking for a fight, I just turn around and leave, because I'm not going to a bar to fight. I might be going just to have a beer, relax. And so I avoid situations that can lead to physical confrontation. Jose isn't looking for a physical confrontation. He's looking for an intervention. He's looking for, to express himself. He can do it. I can't. And that was that. But I had to laugh because it's his eyes change. Eric Swalwell walks by and Jose turns into, almost predatory. I mean,
Somebody's waving some steak in front of him.
I don't think I would have behaved if I passed that guy. He's you should have seen
when we passed Nancy Pelosi's office, he literally was like, Scott, really, you got to kick the door down. You got to go in there. No.
Like that guy in the January 6th guy with the horns or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, that guy. No, Jose's serious. That guy.
Yeah,
serious.
Well, he's serious about kicking the door down. All right. Well, now that we got an inside peek at the mindset and what you were up against logistically, and who has endurance and who doesn't, and your bad knees, I want to hear from all you guys. What happened when you got in to meet with either members of Congress, their staffs? I don't know what. Tell us.
Go ahead, Jose or Morgan. Well, you guys can start.
Well, this is actually my first time ever stepping foot in the halls of Congress. It's about as much as I expected, just pure chaos, people going everywhere, have their own agendas. I think it was very interesting when Scott, the full duration of the video, I think it's in there, where he was basically saying, if Congress did what was right instead of following procedure, more would get done. And that's exactly what I felt after leaving that initial meeting. Just the kind of like, if we get majority of people, I don't mind putting my name on there. It's like, well, we wouldn't be coming to you if we already had the majority on our side. We're asking for you to be courageous. So that was kind of the sense that I got. It's just that.
All right, so about how many meetings did you have today, roughly?
I attended one. So
okay. But,
yes.
In total,
Scott, you went to all of them, right? About how many were there?
We did about a half dozen scheduled meetings, but then the interesting thing about this is that we would go to an office, and they would the staff would go, you really should talk to so and so and so and so, and next thing you know, phone calls being made, and we have another meeting. So we did about a dozen meetings today.
Oh, great.
Great. Yeah, I'm exhausted. I literally, Jeff didn't say, but he's, I come in here and I'm sitting down, my head hurts, my legs hurt, everything hurts, and the phone rings, and it's Jeff. Hey, Scott, you all right? Yeah. Hey, we're on, man. I said, what do you mean? Winers? Jeff, I literally just got in the door. I mean, it was this was a very, very long day, but a very productive day.
And Medea's out dancing now, though.
I don't know.
Did you guys have time to get some Senate bean soup, or did you just stay in the House side?
Just the House side.
Yeah.
Just the House side, yeah. But
All right, so you had 12 meetings. How many of them were with actual members of Congress versus only their staffs? And give us some names. What happened?
Whoa.
Well, no, I'm going to give one name, and I'm going to respect, to have frank conversations of a political nature, where you're asking people to do things that have political sensitivity. Sometimes it's better, discretion goes a long way. And so I'm going to be discreet about some of the people we met with and some of the things that were said. I'm going to talk about one meeting, though, that just blew my mind away, and this was Marjorie Taylor Greene. I've been watching how the media has portrayed her, and it is not flattering at all. No. The media portrays her as shrill, a bully, sort of ignorant, lacking class, lacking gravitas, etc. And I didn't know what to expect. Went in there. She was, first of all, just a perfect lady. Very proper. Everything about her was proper. B, she is sharp as a tack. I mean, she is smart. She is articulate, and she is knowledgeable of the subject. She talked about the military-industrial complex, the history of America's industrial base, how it mobilizes for war. She understood all of the nuances that I was talking about regarding the potential of nuclear conflict. She understood what needed to be done. And I walked away and said, that couldn't have been Marjorie Taylor Greene. That was somebody else, because the lady I met, this was a lady that you would want to be a leader in Congress. This is a lady that, you compare her to Kamala Harris. This is a lady that could be president. With what I saw.
She's fun, and I think that gives people an opening if they're a political adversary to disparage her. And she's very confrontational, and people say, oh, you're not behaving in the right way. Like, remember when she showed the photos of Hunter Biden
the laptop stuff.
Yeah, doing his thing with and people, oh, that's not right. And it's like, well, I think it's right because it's evidence, it's relevant. She wasn't doing it in some gratuitous way, but that's the sort of thing that people seize on. I think that's probably what you have in mind, right, Scott?
That's exactly this. The lady I met today was not anything like that. Very impressive, very serious about her duties, responsibilities, and also very much focused on what needs to get done. I was impressed. Everybody, we met with, I met with two other members and then a whole bunch of staffers. The staffers were all very, look, in 2002, I did a lot of the very same thing that I did today. In fact, I would come down to Congress and spend a week trying to stop a war in Iraq, marching the halls of the House office buildings, the Senate office buildings. And back then, the thing that struck me was the politicization of the issue, meaning that nobody on either side could talk responsibly about this issue because they had dug in on a position. Morgan, Morgan's right. We talked, the person we talked to had dug in on the, but
say that again. Though Morgan was right about what
you're saying is that they were political about it as opposed to thinking about the evidence that you were providing.
Nobody challenged the evidence. When I was a former chief weapons inspector with 7 years of inspections under my belt, knowing everything about WMD, members of Congress and their staff felt they could challenge me on my findings, and they did aggressively challenge me. History shows that I was right, they were wrong.
Right.
Today I came in expecting that kind of pushback. nobody pushed back aggressively on. Some people asked questions, but nobody said, "Oh, you're crazy. You're a nut. This isn't serious." Every one of them went, "Yeah, this is an extraordinarily serious issue." One of the
Do you think
frustrating.
Scott? Do you think it's because they have a better attitude now than in the earlier time, or do you think it's because they weren't really that prepared and they don't even know that much about it and they're not even capable of being confrontational?
I don't know. My wife brought up something because I mentioned this to her, and she said, "Well, when you went last time," she said, "now they just had an election. Congress is in turmoil because it's in transition." And so a lot of people aren't as defensive and not as protective of their turf in terms of policies. Because again, the person that Morgan's talking about just went, "There's nothing we can do. We only got 2 weeks left. Nothing we can do. Can't do anything. We're not going to do anything. Can't do anything. There's procedures. We have a 1,000-page rule book. We got this, that, and the other thing. Da 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 da." It was very frustrating because you're like, hey, 2 weeks is an eternity for trying to save the world. Maybe get off your rear end and make some phone calls and start doing things. But
so Scott, maybe that is part of the reason why some of these others were open to you, because there is only so many weeks left, and so they're like, I can talk freely. I don't have somebody saying, wait, there's something else coming around the corner.
No, they weren't talking freely. They were all constrained by the limitation of Congress. Let's be honest. Congress is, as this person, we're talking about the same person, right? The lady in the green dress. Is that who we're talking about, Morgan?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, very intelligent lady, articulate, knowledgeable, legislative director, and she knows that 1,000-page rule book inside and out. And she made us quite aware of how she knew that rule book and how nothing happens unless it complies with that rule book. And she also made it clear that, for instance, if you mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene, a sneer came on her face. Well, no, we can't work with her. No, and then the other thing was Trump will not do anything. There's no hope for Trump to do anything. So the politicization.
Was this green dress lady a Democrat or a Republican?
Democrat.
Okay.
But I guess that what I'm trying to say is, whereas on the Iraq thing, they challenged me on my conclusions about weapons of mass destruction. On this, even the green dress lady did not challenge me on the conclusions we were saying about nuclear war. That was the frustrating part. She's like, "Yep, I agree with you. Most dangerous time in the world, nuclear war around the corner, but there's nothing we can do. We have the 1,000-page rule book." And you're like, you do know that if the nuclear war happens, we're all going to die. Yes, we're aware of that. Yes, but we have a 1,000-page rule book. And that was sort of the frustration. And you ran into this with most people. I don't want to.
Well, they can make no. I mean, she's talking about procedures and so forth, but there's nothing stopping them from making noise and speaking out.
They could also
right?
do, something on the floor of the Congress, a resolution. They can make some kind of a point of order.
But then you run into again from her. Well, my representative's not going to take the lead on this. My representative's not going to, go forward alone. If 1 million people sign in, so there's no political risk, then my representative may put her name on this list. But it was very few people that are willing to take a leap. But what we found is it's fascinating. I went in there with a very simple ask: stop the attacks on Russian soil. If you do that, the risk of nuclear war almost vanishes immediately, because it's literally an act of aggression by the United States against Russia. Americans are killing Russians, and it's creating an imperative inside Russia that's pushing towards nuclear conflict. If you stop the attacks, the threat of nuclear war almost vanishes totally, because Russia has everything else under control, but the continued attacks creates political problems and national security issues, because it's not only an attack against Russian soil, it creates the potential of setting up a larger attack that could be used as a preemptive strike to destroy Russia, to defeat Russia. And so there, we had no problem with that. What I found is they've already written legislation to do just that. There's a bill already written. And it was fascinating because we came out of this one thing going, they already wrote a bill. It's been out there. And we go around.
What's the bill again? I'm sorry. Do you happen to know the number of the bill or what the details are?
I'll get it and I'll get it to you. But it basically blocks continued provision of ATACMS, and not only just that, but the ability to turn ATACMS into a weapon, the intelligence and all this kind of stuff. It ends the ATACMS attack.
Who sponsored it?
Again, I
all right. Sorry, don't mean to grill you, but okay.
I just walked in the door and I don't have my notes in front of me, so
That's right.
My brain is fried from today. But the point is, nobody else in Congress knew about this bill, and we're walking around, the members who are engaged on this, and they're like, I didn't know anything about the bill. So we're actually like the bee going from flower to flower to flower, pollinating people, going, hey, there's a bill. Hey, there's a bill. And then people want to write letters, and we're like, hey, they want to write letters. So we started to create this, cohesion in Congress. But I'm not expecting major things out of Congress. I mean, the chance of a war powers resolution is null. It's not going to happen. The chance of impeachment is not going to happen, and the chance of this bill getting out of conference isn't going to happen. But as Morgan and everybody else has alluded to, you can make noise. And here's the important thing about making noise. One, and for all I hope tonight the Russian government's listening. FBI, go to hell. I don't care about you. Screw you. Say it. This is a message for the Russian government. There are Americans that don't want a nuclear war, and they're working hard to prevent a nuclear war. And they are going to make some noise. The key here isn't what Congress is going to do. The key here is what the message congressional action will send to the Trump team. That's where the major move has to take place. We need the Trump campaign.
You are the only part.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The Trump campaign to step up and articulate what's in that bill and say, yeah, that's going to be our policy. And if they do that, then the Russians can have confidence that this insane rush towards war that's taking place right now with Joe Biden will end. And there will be an opportunity. It ain't guaranteed. It's Donald Trump. An opportunity to move down a path, an off-ramp. I didn't expect anything today. I expected to come back to the hotel wanting to get drunk out of depression. I think we can figure out that I'm a little bit optimistic today. There's a lot of hard work. Jose Moore, and thank you guys for everything you did. Thank Medea, God bless her, and Adnan.
Well, this is actually inspiring. I'd like to hear a little bit more from Morgan and Jose about how they looked at it. We also have this young woman named Samantha who's been calling into our show, and she's turned into a superstar, and she's been contacting members of Congress. What was your take on it, Jose? I mean, I don't know. Morgan said she was only in one meeting. Were you in only one meeting too, or more than one?
Well, one and a half, maybe two. I mean, sometimes you can walk in impromptu in these things. I mean, I remember walking out of the one meeting that Morgan was referring to, and the one that Scott was elaborating on with the lady in the green dress, the legislative director. I walked out of that meeting and I asked Medea, how do you do these things and not get depressed or pessimistic? And she said, what do you mean? That was one of our better meetings. That's one of the better people in Congress right there. And realize how boneheaded the people who are advising the congressmen are, right? One point Medea had made in that meeting, she said, well, the American people right now see the Democrats as the war hawks and, Trump as the peacemaker. And the legislative director lady said, well, I disagree with that. It's like, of course you do, because you're not living in reality right now. You're living in this bubble, and they should be realizing something, that if Medea Benjamin, right, is saying that the Trump administration is more likely to bring about peace, at least in Russia and Ukraine, that Congress people's ears should be perking up. Because Medea Benjamin has a long record of going to Congress and lobbying for all kinds of things. These are words she probably never thought she was going to say or utter.
Right. So you and Medea actually have something in common, which is that you're both very provocative and confrontational at times, but you both know what the hell you're talking about. And Medea has, you call it interventions. I don't know what she calls it, but she's done it more actually in Congress at hearings and so forth. She's been dragged out of hearings. So Scott, what was your impression of the way these people, I'm sure, or my guess is these people all know who Medea is. What was your impression of what they think of her? Did they take her seriously? Were they cordial to her, warm to her?
They take her very seriously. She's a very serious person. There's a lot of people out there that turn Code Pink into sort of a cartoon caricature of an organization because they do a lot of demonstrative stuff. I'm as guilty as anybody of having done that in the past. I'm not big on political theater, dressing up in orange jumpsuits and to simulate that you're Guantanamo Bay prisoners and all that kind of stuff. To get arrested is, in Congress, I've always viewed that as political theater. But she does it. Jose does something similar, and it works. I mean, it does. It's their tactics, and it works for them. But I would have thought that, because she is a tornado that goes into Congress and these meetings, that people would have been dismissive or rude or something. They all respected her. We went into one meeting, again, I'm going to be discreet because of who it was. And all the guy could say the whole time is, how much, I just want to say, Medea, this is so much better talking. He says, normally you're in here yelling at me or you're, doing
yelling at me.
Said, but here we are talking through this issue. And, and that was said several times where the staff directors and stuff were just like, this is great that we're talking about this, that we're having this conversation.
Is it because of you being there? Did you have a calming influence on Medea?
No, first of all, Medea Benjamin is a professional. She doesn't need me to calm her down or anything like that. She's
the other way around.
Professional. Yeah, Medea probably was a calming influence on me. Because there's a couple times where I wanted to go Marine on them. I'm just like,
all right.
And then Medea.
Well, I don't know. You're telling me that they're saying she's usually yelling at them. So I'm saying,
well, yelling because of the demonstrative nature of some of her interventions. But here she was in the meetings, and they were having very professional conversations, discussions. And the other thing I'll say is she's an old hand, and that doesn't mean about age. That means she's a veteran of this. She has walked these halls forever. And so she has the kind of confidence, even somebody like me, who I'm not intimidated by too much, I'm in Congress and I'm a little starstruck. I'm like sitting there, oh my God, I'm in a congressional office. Oh my God, this is, kind of thing. Medea's like, she's been there, she's done that, she's got the t-shirt, and she doesn't put up with it. She's polite, but she's also very direct in what she wants from them and how she talks to them. I was impressed by her performance from A to Z and everything in between. She was a consummate professional.
So I have a question for you, Scott, and also for Jose and Morgan. Doing this today, because a lot of Americans don't think about what they can do, and I do want to report in a little bit on Samantha's work. Most people don't go to the Congress to go meet their congressman. And let me just take a second here, because you wrote an article that was published in Consortium News with his letter to members of Congress, and you have a list of congressmen at the bottom that you suggest need to be addressed on this very issue. So what would you say to people out there about going and meeting their congressman?
No, just so the audience understands, it's not to Congress. The letter's to the White House.
Well, the letter's to the White House, but there are a list of congressmen. So, for example, I might as well say it now. Samantha, who has called into the Ask the Inspector, she told me that she sent this letter to her Congressman Joe Wilson in South Carolina. He's a Republican. And they acknowledged that they got the letter. and that they really like it. She's talked to a bunch of the staff. He's on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, so that was one reason why he was a good target. So she's been taking that challenge up from you to reach out to them. So what would you say after today about that challenge to Americans to get way more involved?
Jose and Morgan, do you guys want to? I've been speaking a lot. I don't
Yes,
want to.
yeah.
You
Morgan,
guys-
this was your first time. What would you say?
I mean, I think it's important. I really think the minds of the public are more important to change. I do movie events locally. One of the speakers said something that kind of lingers in my mind is that, public policy, takes a long time to change, but public perception, can change overnight. So that in turn will change policy. So I think when you provoke the minds of the masses, then you can really shift people or policymakers. I think that it's important for us to do it. Do I think that, can you be successful, especially with how partisan our politics are? Kind of Scott alluded to it. As soon as we said, at the beginning of the meeting, it was, okay, we're reaching across the aisle. And the person was like, yes, that's very important to do that. And then we started saying names and the true emotion comes out.
Yeah, right.
So, I think just how our politics are, how they're just two parties, they're so far apart, you can't mix in, I think the public needs to be addressed first.
Would you
Well,
say
what's
that-
doable? What's doable? Like, I imagine that not just anybody can get meetings with congressional staffs, let alone members of Congress. Maybe this would be more of a question for Medea, but she's not here. But do any of you know what it takes in general? I mean, Scott, you're a world-renowned figure, so I can see where you would get the meeting. But what about the average activist? Can they get meetings?
Well, yes. I mean, I've been doing it for 10 years, lobbying. I've been doing it for 10 years with and without the Schiller Institute. And we get meetings all the time. We're not Scott Ritter. We're not former UN weapons inspectors, right? We just call ahead. Or what anybody can do, take Morgan, for example, North Carolina, organize a bus or bus loads and call Congress people ahead of time and saying, listen, I'm coming up with a busload of people, right? Because we want to be heard from you. We understand Congress is in session. You can't meet with us in person because you're in DC. No problem. We'll come to you. That's how you put the pressure on these people.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, you say, look, I'm bringing.
So maybe it's not that magical. Maybe I had the wrong impression. That's good to hear. Maybe they don't even have that many requests. So, I don't know.
Well, they probably don't have as many, right? Because it's not like the state legislature where they're in your state. They could be more likely than not your neighbor. They're not in Washington, D.C., far away.
Right. Well, you have a right as a U.S. citizen, first of all, to meet your lawmakers. Right. You don't even have to meet the person who represents you. First of all, I mean, and they try to say that, by the way, they try to say, well, if you have an issue in your district, but you're not my constituent, go to your office. When it comes to nuclear war and the decisions that Congress makes, one congressman's vote, whether they represent you or not, will affect you. So you have a right to go to people who are on the Intel Committee, for example, or on the Foreign Affairs Committee's office and say, I'm bringing a boatload of people from your state, from your district, or go to their district and organize and say, you know what? And I'm not just bringing ordinary people. I'm bringing community board members. I'm bringing people who have concentration of, ability to get votes and stuff. You start intimidating them into meeting with you. That's the way you have to do it.
Now, Jose, hooray, this is actually a very good question. So now they're asking, what should we ask if we call to set up a meeting? Maybe you can continue along that theme.
Well, I would recommend you have to know what you're calling about, first of all. So if this is the case of Scott Ritter and saying hey, Scott Ritter put out this letter talking about a congressional need for action, what I would say is, first of all, you have to be as educated on the topic as Scott Ritter is. Well, maybe you can't get to that level, but at the very least, you have to understand.
Just never sleep for 40 years.
You have to.
Well, that's why I pointed out the letter in this article by Scott. Congress must prevent nuclear war, because this letter, as Jeff pointed out, it starts off, we, the undersigned member of Congress. So you're trying to get your congressman to call on the Congress to stop this conflict. Yeah, this is right there. That's kind of your blueprint, the tool that you could use to what you're saying. You have to be more educated because that way you're going to get their time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you have to also be that'll get your foot in the door, and also watch out for the trap. Don't sit with an intern. Sometimes they will make you sit with an intern, or they'll say like, yeah, we'll give you some low-level intern or something. No, ask to meet with either their foreign policy advisor, their legislative director, or some kind of director. Maybe do some research on what committees the congressman you want to meet with is on, and really bring the pressure. One of the last things that we heard in the meeting that all of us sat in was they said, well, if somebody brought an impeachment resolution, that would have to be answered within 48 hours. It's like, well, wait a minute. Why would you admit that? Why would you say that? Right? Because, is the war powers resolution not, the fact that there was a violation of it, is that not grounds for impeachment? That you don't have to be on any committee to bring that forth. So, I think the thing here is a public pressure game. Any congressman will be apt to move if they thought there was enough public pressure to do so. And that's the one thing that can surpass all the lobbying, right? That's why they spend so much money to change people's minds and brainwash people into thinking one way or another, as opposed to, if more people actually understood what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, then there would be more accountability. So that's why it's important that people actually show that there is a public support for the end of nuclear arms and or for the ATACMS missiles to be used in Russian territory, because that's what the last person, the legislative director, told us. She said there is no public opinion of any of this.
Right. So Scott said that was a simple ask. Let's stop launching the missiles. You're also asking them to sign this letter. Did you also invite them to come to the event Saturday? And if so, did any of them say they would come?
That they were all briefed on the event, and they will find out if some of them, if they call you, then they're coming. If not, then they're not coming. I also told them they can watch it, stream live, and many of them went, okay, that's probably what we're going to do, is watch it. So,
all right.
So
well,
Scott,
tell Marjorie Taylor Greene, I have a little bit of wine left, so I'd be happy to share.
Toast her. Scott, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, see if this looks familiar. HR 10218. This is the bill in Congress for this 118th Congress to prohibit the transfer of ATACMS. And I think the sponsor is Clay Higgins from Louisiana. Does that sound right?
It's 100% correct. And
Okay.
it's a well-written bill. But the problem is when you say Clay Higgins to, I don't want to throw people under the bus. But, we met with a member, and the question was asked straight. Is the problem with the bill, the content of the bill or the sponsor of the bill? And the answer was the sponsor. So here, politics is getting in the way of a document. That bill right there, if passed,
there it is,
would prevent a nuclear war. I'm straight up serious. That bill, if passed, would prevent a nuclear war. I'll say it one more time. That bill, if passed, would prevent a nuclear war that everybody agrees there's a risk of occurring. And yet they're not going to pass it. It's not even going to get close to being passed, which comes back to the 1,000-page rule book that legislative director was talking about. But I will say this, though, because we're being very negative right now. What I saw today in a very long day was democracy in action. It's ugly. It's ineffective, inefficient. It seems ineffective. But it exists. When people say that there's no democracy in America, you're just dead wrong. We were able to go to the staffs and to meet people and have some of the most important discussions imaginable and begin a debate, a discussion, and a dialogue. I actually had a rather I'm not going to say heated, but it was a heated debate with a member of Congress in the cafeteria, where, you know, Medea introduced me to him, and he was like, well, she said, could you spend a minute talking to Mr. Ritter? And he was courteous enough, even though it was in the middle of his lunch. He said, sure. And so he and I started, and then, you know, he started pushing back about, you know, we can't let Russia get away with invading. I said, yes, but we can't have a nuclear war. And then I said, look, Lloyd Austin has said that, you know, these missiles don't have, you know, military value. And he said, well, I disagree with you there. They have great military value. And I said, no, they don't. He goes, you've got to be very careful with your, because it impacts your, it impacts the strength of your argument. If it hits an ammunition dump, that's military value. And I said, no, because we're talking big picture war, strategic outcomes. Ammunition dumps do not, in and of themselves, move the needle. It is part of the reality of war. Ammo dumps get blown up. Tanks get blown up. People die. This happens, and it doesn't mean it has military value. It is just the price you pay to go to war. Military value means that you alter grand operational theory. You alter strategic outcomes, and the ATACMS missile in and of itself does not alter that. 9 out of 10 get shot down. The one that goes through kills some people, but it doesn't change outcomes. But he was convinced. Now, the interesting thing is I had a similar discussion with a military liaison guy who was an Army targeteer, and he knew exactly. And when, you know, here's a man who's informed, military service, did this, and when as soon as I said this, I said, yeah, there's no military value to the ATACMS. It's a tactical system. It has no strategic value. So there's the dangers that you get these members of Congress who are influential, powerful, heads of committees, and they think they know everything. They think they have all the they're set in their ways about that. But I was able to say, you know, my response was, okay, but because he was very casual, he said we can't give up the ATACMS because it compromises a future negotiating position. That we use this as a negotiating position to put pressure on Russia. I said, so the threat of nuclear war is putting pressure on her. He said, yes. And I said, have you done the risk gain analysis? Meaning the risk is nuclear war. That means you're dead, I'm dead, this is all gone. That kind of nuclear war. And the gain is what? What do you gain that offsets the risk of all life ending? And he said, that's your best argument. And we left it at that. And he walked away saying, okay, that's that's something that I have to
that's good. Yeah, I think you have to look at this as a process. You know what I mean? Like you had these meetings, and that doesn't mean there won't be subsequent conversations. And like you said, they're going to think about it and talk to people apart from you. So,
in fact, I think that's the bigger point. That it's repeated meetings.
I can't get into everything because you get discretion. But remember, there was a dual track here. One was to get Congress to do something, and we found out that Congress is doing something. It's not going to succeed, but it is doing something, and if focused properly, can assist in probably the venue that has the greatest potential, and that is getting something out of Team Trump. And that's where I have some optimism. Because the people I talked to had indicated that, well, I mean, they talked about the political aspect, you know, that it's not an easy thing. It's not automatic that Trump will agree to doing that. Again, we get into the whole conversation of why give away a negotiating chip before that. But they all agree that the risk of nuclear war requires that approach. And there are, because of what we did today, there is a very good chance that this issue will be brought up in those circles, and it will be brought up in a way that will impress upon the people the importance of at least considering doing this. That's a victory. that's a victory. It wouldn't have happened if it weren't for today. That I 100% guarantee. This is why I'm optimistic, because if we were just about Congress, I'm with Morgan. It was a little bit of a, they're not going to do anything. But the encouraging thing is that people were doing things. People believe. Read that bill. It's very, very spot on.
The other thing, Scott, about that is it's not even will the bill get through. A lot of people don't even think there is anything possible to do. So at least the bill's existence shows you there is a pathway. That's what I would say.
Yeah, but the other thing it showed me is Congress is working. Congress has a horrible reputation, well-deserved. But Congress is working. It's a system that has to be gamed and played. But remember, Congress doesn't, this is the thing that I walked away from. Everybody expects Congress to do things on their own volition, meaning you just leave, you put 2 batteries in Congress, wind it up, and Congress will be Congress. Well, they are the representatives of the people. Mm-hmm. In order for Congress, in order for democracy to work, the people have to interface with Congress. Yeah. The people have to walk the corridors, knock on the doors, meet with the congressional representatives, do the homework so that when you meet, they take you seriously, understand how Congress functions so that you can talk intelligently about, procedures and laws and all this kind of stuff. You remember, I forget the show, I was a kid, but they how a bill is made. They had the little cartoon figure. I'm just a bill up on Capitol Hill. They show, that's what it is. But it doesn't happen. Yeah. It happens because people make it happen. People make their representative initiate something, and if the people don't do it, understand this: the lobbyists will. There's an army of professional lobbyists who do this every single day. And when we, the people, sit on our asses at home, say, well, Congress has got to do something. And then we say, why is Congress doing that? Because a lobbying group that pays people lots of money is walking around having done the homework. They come in with the briefing slides. They come in with legislative plans, the letters, the bills pre-written. And they come in and they've already said, when they sit down, they go, okay, we've met with, 87 congressmen, 72 of them are willing to sign on. We can do this, and they're doing the job. If we want Congress to work for us, we have to do the job. Yeah. We have to go in and make it. I saw democracy alive and living. I'm not going to say it's perfect. Could it be better? Yeah. But what I saw today was democracy in action, and I'm optimistic. I came out of today.
It's very heartening. It's very heartening to hear this. I wish I went. I chose not to because I had a lot of organizational work for the events this weekend. But I wish I did because it would have put me in the position of conveying what you're conveying now. But this is great. I mean, I'm just guessing that a lot of people sort of felt like I did that, it's kind of beyond my reach. But the way you and Morgan and Jose talked about it, it's like you can just choose to do it. You just choose to do it.
I think that's the
point.
If
you have your act together, you've done the research, not just of the topic, but of Congress. One thing about Medea is she understands how Congress works. She understands, how to get ideas passed around so they coalesce into a deliverable. If you do that, and then you're willing to put in the sweat equity, that means get your knees hurting, guys, because there's a lot of walking involved. I think Congress, as part of their protection, when they do the housing, they sit there and say, all right, who are the representatives that have to get together on the big important issues? Spread them out as far as possible. Make it impossible for citizens to get to them, because we're literally going from here. We're in Rayburn, now we're going to Longfellow, then we're going to Cannon, then we got to go back to Rayburn, and it's just like, good God, could we have done this so like we do all of Longfellow at once, then we go to Cannon, we do everybody there, then we go to Rayburn? Nope, we are literally boom, 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 up, down, all around. And I'm physically exhausted. But
How many miles do you think you did?
I don't know. We may have walked 5 miles or something like that. But it's upstairs, downstairs, all around the stairs. Look, I told Medea, now I know how she stays in shape, because she's
wild. I met Medea. I don't know what year it was. When did Ralph Nader first run for president? That would have been in the early 90s, I think, right? So when he first ran for president, he was having the super rallies, they called them, when he was going into places like Madison Square Garden, these arenas. They did one of those in California, and at the same time, Medea was running for Senate on the Green Party ticket. So she spoke at this rally. I had no idea who she was. I attended it, and I saw she blew me away. It was, I love great oratory, and she really is a superb public speaker. And then remember that they had the Bush Gore recount in West Palm Beach.
Yeah.
This is in the early days of the internet.
The hanging chads?
Yes, the hanging chad thing. Very surreal situation. I was there because I was working for a website that's now defunct called X.com. This was when the internet first started to explode. And they hired me as kind of a comedic reporter. And I went down there to cover it. And that's when I got to know Medea. She was down there with her assistant, June, and we were hanging out. And that's when I saw what her energy was like. And I remember very vividly, I was just like a comedian guy, and she was encouraging me way back then. Oh, you got to become an activist. You got to become an activist. And we went out a few times, and she always wanted to go dancing and stuff. And I don't know how many years ago that is, but it's good to hear that. You said she's 76 now, Scott? Is that what you said? 73, yeah, 73. Wow, she doesn't look it at all. She doesn't act it. She is a force of nature.
I mean, I used to take college students to Congress every single week. We take about 30 of them going on various policies. So I agree 100% with Scott. And actually, Sam was, while she was retailing her story about talking to her congressman, she said, Ryan, have you sent Scott's letter to your congressman yet? I felt...
The other thing about sending the letter... What we found is that the congressmen and their staffs become shoehorned into their respective areas of responsibility, and that's defined by what committees or subcommittees they're on, et cetera. And I don't know how many times somebody said, "Well, I'm on this committee, that committee. This is not my thing." I'm like, nuclear war will kill everybody. It's sort of all, and he's like, well, yes, I understand that, but and the member replied, I need we can't, or this was the staff director, we can't do anything until we're briefed properly on it, which means that even though I'm there talking to them, they can't act until the Intelligence Committee releases a document that they can read, and then they can act on that. But by sending this letter out and calling, you're in effect indirectly briefing Congress. And then what you can do, if enough people challenge, the congressperson may feel the necessity to call up the House Intelligence Committee or call and say, we need a briefing on this. I'm getting, my constituents are concerned about this. They've asked the following questions, and I need a briefing on this. So you are shaping the work of Congress through your phone calls. That's why I wrote in the article, in the letter, just keep their phones ringing off the hook. If you want them to know an issue, trust me. If you keep calling and every one of their staffers picks up, hello, yep, Scott Ritter's letter. See, they can't blow you off. They can't go, yeah, no. They'll be like, yes, no, we've got the letter. Yes, it's a very important letter. Yes, we will read it. Don't click. Right. Scott Ritter's, oh yes, we've got the letter. And eventually they're going to go, boss, do something about that damn letter so these phones stop ringing. And you're starting. This is part of the process. Take control of Congress by becoming active in that which makes it across the representative's desk.
Oh, actually, that was the wrong thing. Anyway, that's Scott's latest article that you can see at scottritter.com. But what I wanted to do actually was show the article that was published by the Consortium News, which is what Scott was just referring to. Quickest way to get to it, though, is at scottritter.com. Right at the top of the page, there's a link to it. So before you go, Scott, and you start putting either heat treatments or ice on your knees, I don't know, you never can know which it is, heat or ice, heat or ice. Let's remind folks, even before this weekend's events, what are you reaching for, the Bengay or some
What
such
is that?
thing there?
Oh, what is that? Oh, that's the relief cream.
Oh, CBD, cannabis. Yes.
Oh, wait.
5,000 milligrams.
Where?
Right, even before we get to even before we get to this weekend, tomorrow night on Ask the Inspector, we'll be talking about this again. Do we have any guests, or it's just us tomorrow on Ask the Inspector, Scott?
Sadly, I think it's just going to be us.
No, that's not sad. I just want to give people the information. That's all. Okay, so that we'll do a great show, and then Saturday afternoon, you can get your tickets at nonuclearwar.com. There's the lineup. There's 3 different panel discussions. Maybe before you put that ointment on your knees, Scott, you can tell people what the 3 topics are. And also, in addition to those names, let's remind folks that since we made that flyer, Dennis Kucinich has been added to the lineup.
Yes, Dennis will be part of the, we have 3 panels. The first panel, it deals with the danger of nuclear war. That'll be moderated by me, Larry Wilkerson, Ted Postal, and Mel Goodman, former CIA analyst, will be on that panel. And basically, we're going to, talk about the danger of nuclear war, meaning what happens if there is a nuclear war, just to remind people that it's not a good outcome. And then, how close we are to a nuclear war. We'll talk about policy, we'll talk about intelligence inputs, et cetera. And this isn't just for the audience. I mean, it is for the audience. But, this panel is designed to educate policymakers, their staffs, foreign diplomats. I have reached out to the Russian embassy. I don't know if they're going to come or not, but I want them to watch the stream. Why? Because then they'll take this stream and they'll write up a report. And that report will go to Sergei Lavrov, or the report, if the defense people do, it goes to Belousov. And now we have indirectly briefed the Russian government on things that are happening that could stop a nuclear war. And then, if there's a push inside Russia where you have the defense ministry saying we have to take a certain stance because of what's going on, now the foreign ministry will say, well, yes, but there's some congressional action, there's a potential of this. Maybe we can, not move forward as aggressively. We can, we're informing a lot of people. The audience that'll be there, the American audience that's watching it, but also Congress, the Senate, and foreign governments. So these panels are very important. The 2 panels that follow after that deal with what we've been talking about today. One is congressional action. What can we do to get Congress to try and get the Biden administration to change its policies? Because of Medea's performance today, which was just stellar, I've asked her to actually moderate that panel because she knows Congress, she knows the issues, and I think she would just do a better job than I would. And then she and I will jointly moderate the 3rd panel, which is how to put pressure on MAGA.
Great.
It's important that we're not here to beat up Donald Trump or even beat up Joe Biden. The purpose of this panel is how to solve a problem. The problem is nuclear war.
Well,
and what can be done to forestall it.
Yeah, and so I think that's a really good point, because again, people tend to say, it's Biden, or it's Trump, and they just dismiss them. But what you're saying here is this is going to be like a tool for people to actually make their government function. They can learn.
And again, I want to remind people that what we did today, this isn't a one-day event. I mean, I don't know how many days I could pull this off. Medea apparently would do it for 3 to 4 days a week for her entire life. I'm already going to go comatose on this bed and slip my wrist. That's how much pain I'm in because of this walking. But Medea, I mean, we are in a campaign mode. What happened in Congress, we will continue to put pressure on Congress through January 20th. We will put pressure on MAGA through January 20th. We're going to do our best to prevent a nuclear war by getting either Biden, Congress, the Trump team, all three, one, none. We're going to create a conversation, and it's an empowering conversation, but it's going to require follow-on work. We're not going to have this panel and then we're done. This panel is going to kick off a broader discussion, more interventions, more dialogue, etc. This is an important thing that we're doing, and I'm very proud of the people that have stepped up and and participated in this.
Oh, and let's mention there are 2 other events in Washington. This is the main event, but afterwards there's an after event at the Tavern Inn from 7 to 10 p.m. Info about both of those events at nonuclearwar.com. And then on Sunday at Busboys and Poets, Scott and Larry Wilkerson will be discussing Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika, one of Scott's great books. And the reason for it on this particular date is because it's the 37th anniversary of the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty. And that is at 7 p.m. And there's a link to that at the same URL I gave you, which is nonuclearwar.com. We'll be streaming the main event Saturday. Scott, I think you have been giving out erroneous information because according to the Busboys and Poets website, there is no live stream of the Sunday night event. That's what I saw on their website. We're linking to their website, so you can go there and get that. But there will be a live stream of the main event at the National Press Club if you can't make it. But please try to make it, because there's nothing like being there in person, and we really want to show that there's a lot of enthusiasm for our effort. So
absolutely,
try to make it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna try and make it. I hope everybody else makes it.
You can't be late.
No, I'll be there.
Is there wheelchair access?
I'm gonna have a helicopter bring me in or something.
There you go.
I'm not supposed to read the comments, and
here we go.
But I did. I'm not going to get angry. I just want to make a point. Somebody wrote in there: has anybody here seen an actual nuclear weapon go off? And I just want to ask the guy, how old are you? I'm 63 years old. I was born in 1961. In 1963, the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty was signed and ratified and implemented. That means that there are no above ground nuclear tests. Rocket science. So nobody in this panel has seen a nuclear weapon. There is a handful of survivors from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There are scientists who participated in the atmospheric testing of the 1940s, 50s, and early 60s who saw nuclear weapons go off. These have been filmed in great detail, but anybody watching this show most likely has not seen it because they all took place underground until we had the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, which then prohibits them going off. So I'm trying to be nice here and all this stuff, but when people want to act smart, you only expose your ignorance. You're trying to make an argument that no nuclear weapons exist, that it's a fraud. It's not. They do exist. I've been to the Mercury facility at the Nevada test ground. I've been to the places where these nuclear tests took place. I've walked the ground with Geiger counters detecting the nuclear, the background radiation. I've inspected the various debris to look at the different byproducts of nuclear fission for the different weapons. you just don't know what you're talking about, and you just end up looking stupid, and you are disruptive of what we're trying to accomplish here. So this is your show. I'll let you guys, deal with it the way you want. But
there was no way for me to delete the comment. I was really hoping that you wouldn't see it, but in the guy's defense, he said he was just curious, and actually, I mean, that's fascinating.
Was it Tauntaun or someone else?
No. Here. It's Temple of the Thorn. So he was curious.
All right.
We'll give him that, but I'm glad you answered it anyway, Scott, because it's really fascinating to hear that anyway.
All right. Speaking of answering questions, Ask the Inspector tomorrow night. It's all about answering audience questions. So join us at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Let's let Scott put that cannabis on his knees. I'll be also working with cannabis tonight in a totally different way. And thanks to Ryan.
You're going to rename your show The Burners?
No, that's off unofficially. All right. So thanks to Jose Vega and Morgan. What the hell's her last name?
You said it earlier on. Morgan. They left. They sent me a message. They had to drop off.
Yeah. I know. All right. She only put Morgan on the screen there. Anyway, so all right. We'll see you guys tomorrow night at 8 p.m. on these same channels. Take care. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Ryan. Good night, everybody.
Bye.